Ah, the slightly tepid, life-giving waters of life. So necessary, and I have that because I drink a lot in a day. Chapter 5, Religion as Child Abuse. There's a disturbing trend amongst many atheists. I bet there isn't. Particularly the New Atheist sect. See, I was right. There isn't, because there's no such thing as a New Atheist sect. Whereby they define parents raising their children according to their own faith as child abuse. No. They label calling your children who are not part of this conversation and cannot take a position on these topics. They call child abuse calling your child a Christian or a Muslim or a Nazi or a Republican child. Their children, they have nothing to do with those things, and labeling them causes them harm, if for no other reason than it sticks them into a cubbyhole from which they will have incredible amounts of difficulty escaping, and also cause them, in most cases, in an overwhelming majority of cases, to hate other people in other different cubbyholes. So, yeah, that is child abuse. By any metric you care to name, that is child abuse. Saying that raising children according to your faith is child abuse is not the fucking thing that is being fucking done. On the sidebar here, there's a file licensed under Creative Commons. Atheists such as Daniel Dennett say that parents teaching their children their faith in God is child abuse. Picture of Daniel Dennett. And they say it. They're also correct. What the fuck is the point? Oh wait, this is more scary! Daniel Dennett wrote, "Many declare there is a sacred and inviolable right to life. On the other hand, many of the same people declare that, once born, the child loses its right not to be indoctrinated or brainwashed or otherwise psychologically abused by those parents." Right. The Christian view is that a child is born and has to be born. No abortions, no contraceptives, just a child is born or else. And then when it's born, you can fuck with it however the fuck you want. That is completely into the category of child abuse, in my view, and apparently in Dennis also. Richard Dawkins stated, "It is one thing to say people should be free to believe whatever they like, but should they be free to impose their beliefs on their children? If there's something to be said for society stepping in. You have the right to believe whatever the fuck you want. You do not have the right to force other people to believe whatever the fuck you want. That's the point. You are forcing your children to believe whatever the fuck you want. That's why it's child abuse." Is this still unclear? Also, a phrase like Catholic child or Muslim child should clang furious bells of protest in the mind. Catholic child, flinch. Protestant child, squirm. Muslim child, shudder. Also, how much do we regard children as being the property of their parents? Dawkins asks. It's one thing to say people should be free to believe whatever they like. Wait, didn't we just cover this? What about the fuck? He actually quoted himself twice with another quote in the middle to throw sand in the air, I guess. The only thing that's different here is, what about bringing up children to believe manifest falsehoods? So here's a question. This is black. Okay? You can tell it's not actually black, but I'm going to have a kid, and I'm going to teach him that this color is black. And this Coke can is blue and orange. Yeah. This white is a different... Well, this orange here is a different color than this black. So this is orange, this is black, and this is blue. I'm going to teach that to my kids. And when those kids grow up, they're going to be fucked in the head. They're not going to be able to recognize colors. Is that okay? Does that count as child abuse yet? No? What about if I teach my kids to kill whoever they, don't like? I not only teach my kids that it's okay to do that, but I teach them how to use a weapon. Is that child abuse? I refer you to the parents of, the children of white supremacist parents who get taught to hate, revile, and kill if they can get away with it, black people. Is that child abuse? Because I think so, and I'm pretty sure you would think so. But when it comes to God, oh, there's an exception that's being made. Why? Dawkins said something, and I didn't like it. Also, it is evil to describe a child as a Muslim child or a Christian child. I think labeling children is child abuse, and I think there is a very heavy issue. We've seen this quote before, at least part of it. Yeah. So, congratulations. 4 quotes, 3 of them distinct. As I just noted above, Richard Dawkins stated that ascertaining whether Hitler was right is a genuinely difficult proposition. Yes, if you're starting from the position that what is morality, it is a difficult question to answer to, say, a hypothetical alien that doesn't understand morality. How would you explain why what Hitler did was wrong to someone who does not understand the concept of right and wrong, such as the Christianity's very first members, hypothetical, fictional members of Adam and Eve, who would not know why Hitler was wrong. And by the way, ascertaining whether Hitler was right, I don't quite remember, but wasn't Dawkins saying that it's hard to explain why he wasn't right? I don't know. Dishonest quoting? Not surprising at this point. Yet he does most assuredly state that it is evil, that's a quote, to label children with their parents' religion. At least he has standards. Implication being that he doesn't have very good ones. Fuck you, he has better standards than you do, you lying piece of shit. The ultimate goal is, of course, that this might lead children to choose no religion at all. Yes, that is the issue for you. That is the ultimate goal, that some children might not be lied to their whole life and therefore believe something that is patently false. That is the goal. It's a good goal. Like this, or the white supremacist children. You know. Did you flinch to that, by the way? White supremacist children? Did that make you flinch? Welcome to our world. If it didn't, fuck you, you sociopath. These militant society stepping in tactics seem to overlook the fact that children are referred to as such due to cultural and social consideration and not primarily theological. Right, that's the fucking point. For instance, Judaism has bar mitzvahs when a child becomes an adult. Right, when a child becomes an adult, not when a child is a child. Dumb fuck. And makes a commitment to the faith. Yes, the problem, of course, with that is when a child becomes an adult is kind of the issue. They become an adult when they make a commitment to the faith, and the fact that they make a commitment to the faith is what makes them an adult. They don't necessarily make a commitment to the faith when they're old enough to understand what the fuck that means. Like, I wasn't. I went through my confirmation, my first communion. I did all that stuff. My parents wanted me to do it, and I thought everyone had to do it because they wanted me to be able, if I grow up and got into a relationship, they wanted me to be able to get married in a church. Because you can't do that, apparently, if you didn't do your first communion. So I did all that stuff. I had no idea I didn't have to. And I even remember thinking to myself, my confirmation? What am I confirming? That I believe in God? Doesn't everyone believe in God? I mean, I know he doesn't actually exist, but I actually, when I was a kid, I invented another definition for the verb to believe. There was the believe sense in, I believe this is an eraser, this is an observable fact, and therefore I believe that it is true. And there's also the belief in the sense of, I say this as a matter of social convenience. It's like saying, hey, how's it going? You're not actually asking the question how someone else is going, you're just kind of opening the conversation. And when they answer, I'm fine, and you may not necessarily be fine, and you really don't give a fuck how they're doing, but you're answering the question because it's a way of opening the conversation. It's a way of greasing the wheels of social discourse. And I thought, I believe in God was just that kind of meaningless phrase. So I remember inventing this other definition for belief in, I believe God. The word belief had this other definition, which was a meaningless phrase said for convenience or something along those lines. I never really codified it, but that's this sense of the word that I invented. My lexicon included a sense to believe that was that ridiculous. So yeah, I did my confirmation. I made this commitment that made me an adult in the faith, or whatever, and I didn't know what the fuck I was confirming. Likewise, various forms of Christianity have confirmation, etc. Exactly my point. The child is called such for convenience, which is the problem. It's disgusting. And it's only done for really bad reasons, which is also disgusting. So what's your point again? What is the logical conclusion of this atheistic agenda? Apparently it is evil for parents who believe in God to teach their children to believe in God. No, it's evil for parents to teach their kids things that are patently false. But it is good, not child abuse, for atheists or government-paid teacher. Oh look, fear-mongering against the government. This is a real creationist website. To inculcate atheism, disbelief in God. I thought it was lack of a belief in God. Mariano, author of this article, you lying douchebag. Into all children. No, it's to give them a choice. To not cripple them and then force them to spend their lifetime with crutches, which is what religion does. You break your kids' legs and tell them they can only ever walk with the crutches of Christianity in their hands. Some children might grow up and their legs get fixed over time. Their capacity for critical thinking isn't too damaged, and they grow into adults who are capable of analyzing claims still. And they might abandon the crutches and realize, hey, I can walk, and I don't need these stupid, useless things I've been carrying around my whole life. But not all children have that opportunity. Some, very few, too few, have that opportunity. But so many children are lied to and forever crippled in their intellectual capacity that, yeah, it would be great if they were given a choice. And I'm not saying make them all atheists. I'm saying give them a choice. You people love choice. Oh wait, no you don't. You're religious. You hate choice. This is the same twisted thinking that drove Stalin, Hitler, and Mao et al. And resulted in the death of 100 million people. Right. Shall I look up that Wikipedia article, or I think it was Wikipedia, where it lists the number of people who died in religious wars. Not necessarily Christian religion wars, but just wars based on the topic of religion, which, by the way, includes Hitler. Shall we do that? Because it's a hell of a lot more than 100 million. 100 million people, this bullshit figure, is pennies to the dollar of religious murder, and they have to go with Stalin, Hitler, and Mao. Twisted thinking, really? Remind me again, what part of Hitler's philosophy, where they had those belt buckles with God with us on it in German, what part of that philosophy inculcated atheism? Now granted, they had some other belief, and they were trying to push that upon their whole society. That's why they're wrong. Get this, their belief that they were pushing on others wasn't atheism. Stalin may well have been an atheist. He also had a mustache. Did he push his belief because he had a mustache? Mao was a communist. He was pushing communism. Atheism is not communism. I know this is a shock to religious people, but there's a difference between communism and atheism. And there you go. Those three names that you love to quote so much result in exactly 0 deaths for atheism. Sorry. Fuck you. So atheists have circumvented parental authority. Really? When? How? And have indoctrinated children into atheism and Darwinism via public schools. Oh, those evil public schools where things that are true are taught to children and things that are false don't get taught to children because they're false. Oh, well, okay, great. But Christians are fighting back. Okay, let's let Muslims fight back too. Let's teach your kids that Jesus was just a prophet, was not a Messiah. Someone took his place on the cross. And let's teach him that Muhammad went to heaven on a fucking flying horse. Are you okay with that? No? Welcome to Our Point of View, douchebags. One of the great mission fields that is gaining momentum today is child evangelism. Right, so your response to lying to children being child abuse is to abuse children harder. Missionologists are increasingly focusing on the 4 to 14 window, which refers to the demographic group from age 4 to 14 years old, because you needed that spelled out loud if you're religious, because you're probably a fucking idiot. This group is being reached in public schools through Bible clubs, for example. Specialized, innovative tracts for the stupid in this article is getting to me apparently. Tracts for children have been developed. Much more needs to be done. Yeah, not enough choir boys have been fucked in the ass yet, apparently. Scripture declares, train a child up in the way he should go, and he is old, he will not depart from it. And when he is old, you can't even quote your fucking Bible right? Proverbs 22:6. Yes, that right there, that is the child abuse part. Thanks. It is imperative for Christians to reach children before secularists do, and not after. Right. Lie to them first, before people tell them the truth, because then they won't believe the truth, and you win! Now that is chapter 5 as a whole. It's pretty short, so I think I'll continue with chapter 6, and really hope that it doesn't continue for an eternity like chapter 4 did. Atheism, arguments against theism, or atheism, atheology. Haha, they have atheology because they're atheists, and theists have theology, you see? It's clever like being slapped in the face. This section will not reflect what one would expect in considering the particular arguments that atheists raise against the existence of God. So it won't? So your atheism's arguments against theism will contain no arguments against theism as raised by atheists? Douchebags. The reason for not focusing on particular arguments is that they all have something in common. Right, they're all correct. Thus, it seemed most important to focus on the commonality so that it may be detected within any of their arguments. I smell vague hints of the Roadrunner tactic coming. Let's see how long it takes him for trying to prove empiricism is wrong with a two-sentence argument. The only argument that we will consider is, who made God? Really. That's the argument against theism that all arguments against theism have. That's the commonality. That's the only one you'll consider. All those other ones that are so great, like the problem of evil and the Euthyphro dilemma, no, we won't consider those. We'll just say, who made God? And that's the only argument that atheists use. Fuck you. It is not hyperbolic language to state that every one of atheism's arguments against God is premised upon the atheology of the individual atheist making the argument. Yes, in fact, it is. Because that doesn't make any fucking sense, and you're saying it applies to everyone without exception. It's hyperbole. It's also wrong, but hey, gotta keep with the trend. While atheology, I really hate this fucking word, by the way, atheology, would technically mean lack of or no theology, I am employing the term in order to sound like a presumptuous douchebag, to bring attention to the fact that atheists are some of the most theologically minded, often quite dogmatically people. Thus, the A for atheism and theology for the study of or systemization of doctrines about God. The reason atheists seem to know more about theology than Christians is because Christians are fucking ignorant about their theology, and when we are presented the arguments of theology, eventually we kind of memorize them. And when we get two that we memorize and they conflict with each other, we can say, hey, this doesn't work. These two bits don't fit together. So yeah, we are more theologically minded than theists, mostly because our position is informed, while theirs can literally be held by anyone, even with a lot of brain damage. You know, that joke they were making earlier about maybe we should grant him that being an atheist requires no more intelligence than a baby. Being theists requires no knowledge of anything at all. Not only does it not require knowledge of stuff, it requires, in many cases, ignorance about things, like evolution. You believe Adam and Eve came from dirt and a rib 6,000 years ago? Evolution tells us that would be ridiculous. All animals poofed into existence by magic that at the same time, a day before or two or whatever. That makes no sense. You require ignorance of evolution in order to espouse the ridiculous mythology in the Bible. So, fuck you. We are more theologically minded because we know a fuck ton more than the average Christian or theist in general does. Dogmatically, no. The reason we might seem dogmatic to idiots like you who don't know what words mean is because your Bible has words in it. And we can read those words, and we can repeat those words without having to make up excuses for why something like kill gay people actually means that God's okay with gay people because he loves everyone. And although it might seem very complicated, just remember John 3:16 and everything will be okay. Their Bible says a certain thing. We don't believe any of it, but you say you do. So we hold your nose to the fucking mess you made on the newspaper, and guess what? It makes us sound dogmatic. Forgive us for not being shameless fucking hypocrites who say we believe one thing, but then don't even know what the fuck those things are. Atheism's arguments against God's existence are peppered with statements such as, why would God, or why wouldn't God, or why does God, or why doesn't God, or if God was, then God would, or should, or surely could, etc. These are all theological statements because they are premised upon presupposed attributes of God. Yeah, they are theological statements pointing out the difficulties in your theology using the presupposed attributes of the fictional character God in your fucking bullshit story. We grant you, you know, that whole granting the point and then moving on with the discussion, we do that to you for your benefit and then still prove you wrong because you are so fucking wrong. We can't help but to eventually find a way to prove your fucking incoherent, primitive, superstitious bullshit to be flawed in some sense, factually incorrect. They're theological statements the same way that me slapping you in the face is nonviolence. For example, if God was, then God would be omnipotent and loving. No. You say God is, and God is omnipotent and loving, and therefore Epicurus' problem of evil. We don't have to presuppose a goddamn thing when you're the one providing the basis for the argumentation. It's arguing, you know, for the sake of argument, we grant you this idea and then point out how fucking incoherent it is. And I like that word incoherent because it applies so well to so much of this bullshit. Loving means not allowing any pain, evil, or suffering, and so either God is not loving or is not omnipotent, and if God is neither loving nor omnipotent, then God is not. Various likewise examples could be concocted, and very many of them are, and you still can't fucking answer a single goddamn one of them. See the previous chapters, Epicurus and Euthyphro. Still failed, still haven't answered it, although you pat yourself on the back pretty fucking hard. Yet this statement, though admittedly fictional, yes, the God is fictional, the contradiction is not, is based upon typical atheist statements. Yes, when you try to explain to someone that 2 + 2 = 4, you only have so many different ways of proving that 2 + 2 = 4 before you run out of ways of rephrasing it for the intellectually crippled dumbasses you're trying to explain things to. You can only repeat something so often before it becomes typical, and the fact that you reject them doesn't make them false, and the fact that they're typical doesn't make them false. It just means you're a fucking idiot for not getting it through your fucking thick skull. And it is premised, I like how they cut sentences, the author is not very good, and it is premised upon various theological assertions. God is, would, or should be omnipotent. That's what you say. We grant the point and continue with the discussion. God is, would, or should be loving. You say he is, granting the point, arguing arguendo, and proving that your belief is incoherent. Loving means not allowing it, etc., etc. God will not allow it, should eradicate it based on our preferred schedules, etc. Right. We demand that your all-loving God actually put up or shut up according to his own attributes, which you have defined for us. The question is, why aren't you expecting your God to do the things you believe your God can, does, and will do? Oh, he'll do it in good time. He solves evil all the time. Never that I've seen, and, never in history. But hey, he does, because, again, John 3:16. Also note that atheism and arguments do not exist in a vacuum. Arguments against God's existence do not exist in a vacuum. Right. To argue against God's existence, we have to argue, for the sake of argument, on the basis of the gods that you are describing to us. We could not argue against God's existence if we didn't have dumb shits like yourselves telling us that gods exist and their dislike for gay sex means you shouldn't fuck whatever. The atheist does not exist in a realm of utter ignorance of the world. Correct. Atheists tend to exist in a realm of they know a fuck ton about the world more than Christians do, then come to certain conclusions as to what would constitute evidences of God's existence. Tell you what, when you understand what evidence is, you will agree with me that there is none for God. The problem is you don't understand what the fuck evidence is, and therefore you think you have it. Hey, look at all this money I have. Look, I'm rich. There's nothing in my hands? Well, yeah, nothing is money, right? Wrong? Shit. Only then emerge from the vacuum and look around the world and conclude, therefore, God does not exist. Right. We look around. We know more about the world than religious people do. We see no evidence of the existence of this God, because there is no evidence of the existence of this God, and we then conclude, some of us, that God does not exist. Or, more accurately, as the beginning of this article pointed out, we do not believe in a God. They started out so well, and they just keep sinking lower and lower. Yeah, that's correct. We know more than you do, and we conclude there is no God. Your arguments are bullshit. Because they are, and the Christian one, the Abrahamic God, certainly does not exist. Rather, the atheist considers what is and what is not, what does and does not occur, and only then makes statements as to what God would or should do. No, atheists do not make statements as to what God should do. We listen to what Christians say God should do, and then ask why he isn't doing those fucking things, and then Christians bitch, knowing that those things do not occur. Well, yeah, we observe that these things don't happen, so we kind of hold your feet to the fucking fire. This is all generally speaking, since, for example, the atheist would claim that God does not perform miracles even though God does so. Right, because atheists are liars. Thus, rather than seeking to instantly answer the atheist's argument, the first response should be to ask the atheist to substantiate their premise, their atheology. Following are some examples of relevant questions. How did you arrive at your atheological positions? If someone asks me that, I'm going to tell them to fuck the fuck off. Why should we confine our understanding of God to your atheology? Atheology, the one that you made up in this straw man circle jerk of yours, our understanding of God is the understanding of God that you give us, that we then reject because it's fucking stupid. Why do you define love the way you do? I don't know. Why the fuck are you such a lying shitbag? Why do you set certain restrictions on God? You mean the restrictions such as God cannot condone a liar? God finds homosexuality an abomination? You mean those kinds of restrictions that you set on your own God, or that your fictional character God's apparently set on himself? We don't. You do. Why do you demand that God do as you dictate? I don't. I demand God does as he says he dictates. And he doesn't. Meaning we're right in that God, your God does not exist. Therefore, the atheist argument should be first dissected and inspected for atheology, because that's totally a real thing and not just something we made up because we're fucking liars. Who made God? 6.1. This atheist argument has been popularly restated as, who designed the designer? This is, by his own admission, the very central argument of Richard Dawkins' book, The God Delusion. Is it really? I don't know that it's a central argument. I don't know that he's admitted this. If he has, good for him. And he's still correct. The following quotations demonstrate the ubiquity of the argument. Richard Dawkins. Oh, right, because if you're trying to prove that Richard Dawkins' argument applies to all atheists, you want to quote from such a diverse field as Richard Dawkins. In The Blind Watchmaker wrote, to explain the origin of the DNA protein machine by invoking a supernatural designer is to explain precisely nothing, for it leaves unexplained the origin of the designer. Right. Who made DNA? Oh, God did it. How? Where the fuck did he come from? He was there. You're not explaining anything. You're making up this thing that you believe explains your point, but you're not explaining that thing, so you've explained precisely nothing. Christopher Hitchens, in God is Not Great, wrote, who designed the designer or created the creator? Religion and theology have consistently failed to overcome this objection. And they have. See, the way that they overcome this objection is to say, he was always there. Magic. How does that make sense? Oh, he uses magical god powers to create himself out of nothing. But he was eternal, or whatever. They can't answer this. So they just pretend it's not really an argument, and that's a faulty argument. It's too popular because a lot of people say it, so it's wrong. Daniel Dennett, in Darwin's Dangerous Idea, references Richard Dawkins because, of course, again, if you're trying to show that an argument is ubiquitous, an argument made by Richard Dawkins is ubiquitous, you use people who refer to Richard Dawkins to show how diverse the field is, who is quoting Richard Dawkins and proclaims that Daniel Dennett is correct in approving of Richard Dawkins. Let me repeat that. Sorry, I skipped. The quotes are all the same size. I apologize for that. Daniel Dennett references Richard Dawkins and declares that it is an unrebuttable refutation as devastating today as when Philo used it to trounce Cleanthes in Hume's dialogues 2 centuries earlier. I don't know who Philo is. I don't know who Cleanthes is. I know of the philosopher Hume, who is not Brit Hume, that douchebag on Fox, but I've not read Hume's dialogues. I don't know what that is. So, going just from my knowledge of religious argumentation, I'm pretty sure they've never rebutted the refutation of the Christian God not needing a designer, because they just make shit up. Whatever's convenient at the moment, they make it up and they work from there. The word that I keep using is incoherent. There's a reason for that. It is incoherent. They, as I said before, they just put a bunch of patches on something and create this empty shell. We point out there's nothing inside, but no, they just put another patch. Look, there's a hole there. I can see right into it. There's nothing inside. Patch. How do you argue against God? Well, I've just presupposed that God exists. Great. You just tossed a huge patch on everything, and now you can just throw away every problem, every objection. Oh, I just presuppose God exists, and all those problems you're referring to, they don't matter. Well, they do matter, and the fact that you can throw patches on something doesn't mean it's wrong. And again, wanted to demonstrate the ubiquity of the argument that was first written here as being made by Richard Dawkins, you go to Richard Dawkins for the third time. Richard Dawkins in The God Delusion quotes Daniel Dennett, who is quoting Richard Dawkins and proclaims that Daniel Dennett is correct in approving of Richard Dawkins. This argument, although very popular and promulgated by atheist scientists and even atheist philosophers, is a premier example of what is generally termed Sunday school atheism. See, because Christians have a Sunday school, and so we want to prove atheists are wrong, so we just say they have a Sunday school, and we'll just pretend that made a point. It is called this because it is a Sunday school level question. No, it's called that because you're disingenuous fucktards who wanted to make it look like atheism was as ridiculous as your belief system is, and one that Sunday school children are able to answer before achieving puberty. Really, Sunday school children are able to answer who created God before they achieve puberty. How? What the fuck is the answer, you lying sack of shit? No one has answered this. People say he always existed. Well, why the fuck can't the universe have always existed? No, the universe requires God. And God doesn't? No, he's special. Why the fuck is he special? A Sunday school child could answer that question. Yeah, maybe. You haven't, and neither have they. No one has ever answered. Apparently they're capable of answering it, but somehow, in the thousands of years of history of your religion, no one has. And here it is again. God is eternal and thus does not need a cause. Great. How? How the fuck does that work? How is God eternal? He just is. He's God. You remember that thing about the atheists requiring as much intelligence as a newborn baby? Right there. Hypocrite. To elucidate a bit, you're not going to do that, Mariano, author of this article. You're not going to elucidate a goddamn thing. You haven't so far, and I strongly suspect you're not going to ever. In the next section, we will consider the cosmological argument. Oh, that's going to be fucking good. Which makes clear that everything that begins to exist has a sufficient cause. Since God never began to exist, God did not have a cause. Proof, please. Evidence of this, please. But, of course, they don't have any. They just have to assert it and move on, and the dipshits who go to this website will automatically believe that they must be correct. But it is not claiming that God is eternal a mere way out of the problem who made God? Yes! Oh, wait. No. It is, but they said it isn't. So, fixed. Since time began to exist, time had a cause. Says you. That is not the findings of science. Since time began to exist, whatever caused time is timeless. Is it? You know more than cosmologists do? Amazing! Where's your Nobel Prize? A.k.a. infinite or eternal. Because timeless is unclear to these dipshits. It is the linear time that we experience that makes cause and effect relationships possible. An effect follows a cause. Right. If God is eternal, then how can he cause things? Eternal implies that he's always been there, right? He's always existed. He's always been the same. It doesn't change. He's timeless, though, so he doesn't exist in time. He doesn't age. He doesn't, our whole perception of time is events flowing one from the next. So we have a God here who is essentially stuck in a block of timelessness. With no space, no matter, no energy, nothing. He's not even like, what is it, Zod? General Zod in Superman? He's not even like him and his true cronies who are stuck in that flat panel banging away for all eternity. He's just stuck, unmoving, unchanging, forever. And all of a sudden, the universe exists because he willed it to be so. How the fuck did he will it if he's not part of time? How did he proceed from one moment to the next in order to create it? How did he go from day to day if he's timeless? The reason why they call it infinite or eternal here is because timeless is a problem, but they're too stupid to know that. They just explain words that their dipshit audience doesn't understand because, hey, gotta start somewhere. It is the linear time that we experience that makes cause and effect relationships possible. Right. Linear time makes cause and effect relationships possible. God does not exist in time, therefore he does not make cause and effect relationships possible. You just disproved your own theology. Congratulations. Are you an atheist yet? Of course you're not. You're too dishonest. An effect follows a cause. Yet since God exists outside of or without time, cause and effect relationships are impossible, and thus God is the uncaused and causable first cause. Right. Cause and effect relationships are impossible, so God did not cause anything. So God didn't do anything. God didn't create the universe. Do you agree with me? I strongly suspect that this is him making a point he doesn't understand, contradicts him, and then immediately drawing the wrong conclusion. It was God's first action of creation that brought the time-space continuum into... See, he made the valid point that disproves his theology, missed it because he's an idiot, and then contradicted himself. Therefore, in God's timeless realm, there is no such question as who made God, since this is a time-space domain-based question which simply does not apply. Says you. Even if God is in a time-space domain, whatever, God timeless realm, it does still apply, even according to you. It is like asking, to whom is the bachelor married? No, it's like asking, who the fuck made your God, because you think that all things require someone to make them. Literally. I mean, you're saying, since God exists outside of or without time, cause and effect relationships are impossible, and thus God is the uncaused and causable first cause. No, actually that's the opposite. See, if the cause and effect relationships are impossible, then he isn't cause, because cause and effect also requires, the word cause is still in there somewhere. And anyways, this is all bullshit, because we do know there are uncaused events. I'm going to give you one example that I always remember, is radioactive decay. Radioactive materials have a half-life. That is the period of time during which a quantity of matter will decay halfway. So if you have like a pound of uranium, you follow the half-life, and after that half-life elapses, you'll be left with half a pound of uranium. Half of the other stuff will be some other decayed material. I don't know what's below uranium, but that's how it works. The half-life is half of the life of that material. And half-life again means you're left with a quarter of the original quantity. It's always a half. But if you have a single atom of a radioactive material, just one atom, and it is a radioactive atom, of course, and you put it there and you wait for the half-life, it might decay, it might not. What causes it to decay? As far as anyone knows, nothing. But hey, a Christian's going to step in here and say, well, just because you don't know what's causing it to decay doesn't mean nothing is. We cannot detect any reason why it is decaying at the point it does. We can't determine why it isn't decaying. So can we really say that there is a cause? No, we can't. To be fair, yeah, necessarily there could be a cause, but we don't know it. But we don't know it, so you can't say there is a cause. And the Christian practice at this point is to say, you don't know, therefore there is a cause, and it's called God. Dishonest bullshit. Note, however, that atheists have no problem believing in an uncaused first cause. No. Atheists are people who lack a belief in a God, and that's it. It does not describe any other beliefs they might happen to have. Remember that first chapter? Because this guy doesn't. At least when it is not supernatural, but nature, as they promulgate the following assertions. It is ignorant and superstitious to believe that God made everything out of nothing. Yes, it is. It is rational and scientific to believe that nothing made everything out of nothing. No, and no one believes that, especially not scientists. It is ignorant and superstitious to believe that God is eternal. Yes, it is. it is rational and scientific to believe that matter or energy is eternal. No one believes that, except for maybe energy, but there is a view of the universe right now that calculates the net amount of energy to be zero. So the universe is on borrowed energy. The description for this is, imagine a flat field. There would be no energy in this field. Now, if something happened, and we don't know what caused, if anything, the Big Bang, we don't even know if it makes sense to ask what caused it, because causality doesn't make sense at that point. But if someone were to take a chunk out of the flat field and dig a hole and put all the energy on the side, what is the average height of this flat field? Well, you have the flat at 0, and then you have the mound that goes up to 10, and you have the hole that goes down to 10. Or you might have a hole that goes to 5, and a really narrow spike of dirt that goes up to 10 or something like that. What is the average? Well, the size of the hole will obviously match the amount of material that was dug out of the hole. So you have plus 10 and a minus 10, so the average is still 0. So there's your total of energy for the universe. So not only do scientists not believe that matter is eternal, but they also believe that energy, the sum of energy in the universe, is 0. Some of them, at least. And it's a fairly compelling point of view. This completely solves the problem of causality, or at least the problem that's being described here as being irrational, sarcastically. It solves the whole problem because there is no energy in the universe. Energy is, energy cannot be destroyed. It can transform, but it cannot be created or destroyed. And therefore, in a sense, it's eternal. But if there's a sum of energy that is 0, where you have a debt going below 0 at some point, and therefore have a spike of positive at some other point, your sum is still 0, so there's no problem. You haven't created energy, you just moved it around a little bit. God is an effect and must have had a cause. Well, you say he doesn't, but what the fuck is your proof for this? You can say that he doesn't have a cause all you want, but you haven't proven the case. Contrary to this, matter-energy is the uncaused first cause. Again, no scientist anywhere will tell you that matter/energy is an uncaused first cause. That is bullshit. Carl Sagan did ask the question, if you believe God is eternal, why not skip a step and simply assume the universe is eternal? I mean, you're saying God is eternal and God created the universe. Why not skip a step and simply go, well, the universe is eternal then? Carl Sagan wasn't asserting that this is the case, and atheists do not firmly and dogmatically believe that this is the case. So this is just a lie, but even then, it's not the same thing as your view, which is a magic man did it and that's the end of it. If God made everything, then who made God? If everything requires to be made, then either your God requires someone to make him, or God is not a thing, and therefore your God is nothing, and therefore your theology is that your God does not exist. Matter made everything and nothing made matter. No. Energy, from that debt that I described earlier, is a kind of congealed form of energy in, I think it's string theory, I'm not entirely sure. That's physics that is way beyond my understanding. But matter is not the first thing that existed in the universe. The first thing that existed in the universe was energy. And like I said, if you work from the sum 0 energy and just a virtual particle popping into existence maybe pushed energy away from the 0, just knocked it in one direction, then you had energy in the other direction, and the conflict just bang. You have the expansion of time and space at that point. Then not only did matter not make anything, a virtual particle is virtual, it's not matter, then it wasn't nothing that made matter, and matter didn't make everything. Energy did. And a virtual particle made energy from a debt of energy lacking in one place and being more of it in some other place. So there you go. This turned out to be a little bit longer than I hoped, so that's the end of Chapter 6, and I'll see you very shortly for Chapter 7.